Hi everyone, how's it going? I'm Bonnie Violet, trans femme, genderqueer, spiritual drag artist, digital chaplain.
And I'm Pacey, trans mask, non-binary, mental health and recovery advocate.
And welcome to Transjoy Boise, where every story, laugh, and act of joy is a stand for our community.
We uplift bold voices, share real experiences, and celebrate trans lives thriving.
Tune in and connect and spread the joy because trans joy is
Unstoppable.
Yes. Awesome. I know it's like we skip a couple of weeks and it's like it does feel a little like, I don't know.
That felt pretty smooth.
Yes.
To me. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm feeling awkward.
Yeah, that always comes back.
Right?
Because I'm always awkward anyway because I don't like being the center of attention. I hate it. So anytime we're looking at a big monitor of ourselves, and that does not help.
Not the greatest angle either. We're just like, hi. But yeah.
It's we missed a couple weeks. I was horrifically ill. I have chronic sinusitis, and it's a consequence of drug use from when I was younger. So my sinuses are just fucked, and anything can be in the air and I'll get a sinus infection. So this one was particularly bad. I had to have 2 rounds of antibiotics, and now I need to get the rhinoplasty surgery.
Right.
And that's one that I've been terrified for over 15 years, but it's like it's time.
Yeah, it was when you were texting me about it. I'm so glad that you're feeling better, because I know you're feeling awful. But there was one time when you texted and you said, like, I guess it's time to have the surgery. And I was like, I knew what you were talking about, and it wasn't quite the surgery, because text, I added a little oomph to it, but I almost sent a joke about it. I was like, I just don't think it's going to come across right. So, but yeah,
that's funny.
Oh, surgery,
it's funny now. Yeah, yes. I was fucking miserable for over 2 weeks. So
yes, and I was away most of the last couple of weeks. So I got to go to the HIV is not a crime conference, or it's actually a training academy in Raleigh, North Carolina, which was a really cool experience. And then I was at the Human Rights Conference and the National Trans Visibility March and World Pride. Yeah, so it was really cool, and it was really tough. Really? It was really, really tough. You know how it was just a lot. A lot of us, it was kind of cool to be with folks all over the country. And mostly when I go do stuff, when we go to trans stuff or HIV stuff in other parts of the country, it's almost all run and led by Black folks, Black and brown folks, trans folks. Yeah, so it's really awesome, and it's really a unique kind of opportunity, I think, for. And so I always love it, and I also always learn so much. And it was also a little. It was affirming as well as it was kind of disheartening, in the sense that I found myself, whether I was at the Human Rights Conference or the HIV is not a crime or the Trans Visibility March stuff, like a lot of our communities are struggling. There's a lot of difficulty in collaboration and working with their local partners. And they're really, you can tell people are really up in arms about it. Like I was in one conversation where the instructor actually left.
Really?
And we just kind of picked it up from there, because people were just sharing what their experience was as being like a trans leader right now. And you couldn't help but your experience kind of like impact other people in the room. So you might say something like, well, I lost my job in this and that, or it feels like only the pretty trans girls get the work, or things like that. And then the pretty trans girls in the room are like, what the fuck, like I've worked hard to get here too. And then there's this and I think everyone, we're all earnestly trying to move at it, and then you have trans men who are very rarely even a part of the conversation, which is a whole nother issue. And one of the things that in HIV, we're starting to see a lot more HIV with trans men as well.
Really?
And so they've always kind of been like in the background of a lot of the trans conversations. I mean, you have protect the dolls, right?
Of course, yeah. I did see that like an alternative for that, like for the men, would be protect the Kens.
The Kens? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard them referred to as like action figures or whatever. But you know,
that's
I don't know. But it was really but in a lot of ways that was affirming, because I feel like that's a lot of the challenges that we've had here. There are a lot of us in Idaho in particular. I think Idaho is really responding well to what is happening, and people are coming to the front lines from all over, and that has been really difficult, I think, for a lot of us to figure out our place. I know we've even been challenged at times with feeling like either getting our toes stepped on, or unsure of where we fit, or just a lot of different kinds of challenges, whether it's with other trans and non-binary folks, or it's typically usually with communities that are like shared, like broader LGBTQ communities, than like other trans and non-binary communities. But so, and it's like, and I think we're all just kind of challenged by it. I don't think anyone has any malintent. Anyone is not wanting to collaborate and work well with one another, because I feel like I have fallen into that realm probably just as much, if not worse, which has been really challenging for me, because I feel like I've always prided myself, and I've always been one who's been able to kind of like be that in between, and like be able to work with people that other people don't want to work with in an authentic and real way. And it always had been, but I've been finding myself getting my feelings hurt a lot more. And then that makes it difficult for me to kind of move forward in a lot of different relationships. And I felt that locally, but even on a national level. A national level, the conversation about what's happening is so different. There's a lot more optimism, and there's a lot more spaces for power, which I understand, but in doing that, they kind of like they forget about us. And so I find myself a lot of times going, but what about me, or what about us, And I did have an opportunity at the Human Rights Conference to shake things up a little bit.
Okay.
So I was a bit of a disruptor, which is not usually my thing, but I did get up there and I kind of called some of the speakers out and was but what about places like Idaho? And what about this, and explaining our stuff. And I just kind of felt like talked down to, like it was very patronizing and condescending. And I was like, with all due respect, like I get that. Like, this is not about that.
Right.
This is about the bigger thing. And really for us, I think it's like, because we are doing the work here. And I believe that we're going to have the utmost success possible in Idaho, because there are so many people coming together. However, I think it takes more than us here to have a bigger impact for us here, as well as, beyond.
Nationally.
And I think some way, somehow, we need to be invited to those tables. We need to be in the conversations, which we are doing a little bit more, especially with like the ACLU and that sort of thing. But sorry, I feel like I talked a lot. But
that's okay.
I haven't really processed the whole thing.
No, it sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that you're absolutely right. Like, we need to be sitting at those tables, and we are being invited to some of them, but the rest, like, we're going to have to just force our way into.
Well, and sometimes when we do go to those tables, are we really
invited? Right. Exactly.
Because there's kind of that condescending, like, oh, isn't it cute? Idaho's in the room.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Transjoy is resistance. Transjoy is community. Transjoy is here with our weekly social support group. Join us for a welcoming and affirming space where trans, non-binary, and gender diverse individuals can connect, share, and support one another. We will have peer-led discussions, social connection, and mutual support in a space where you can be heard, celebrated, and uplifted. No RSVP needed, just show up and be you. We'll gather every Thursday from 5 to 7 p.m. at Roots Market. For more info, click on the link in our show notes.
Yeah, but I think that's so fucking frustrating when it's like they don't know. It's like, I think that their mentality is fucking cute. Like, oh, that's so cute. You think this isn't a big deal. Oh, that's so cute. You think that this isn't going to happen to you. That's so cute. You don't have to worry about, catching criminal charges for your body. That's fucking adorable. In Idaho, we know what's actually happening and what is truly at stake. So maybe you should get on our level. And that was kind of the vibe that I left DC with when we went to that event. was everyone was sort of in awe of how much Idaho has going right now to fight this administration. And it was disheartening to me because we're there out of necessity. Like, we have to be at that level right now. And if everyone else, like those cute people at the table that are talking down to you, could get on our level, we would be a stronger, unified front.
Yeah.
And like, I realize that we're there because of necessity, and they're not yet, but it's yet.
Right. Well, we are only there, like, I was only at the Human Rights Conference because I was happened to like be able to sneak into somebody's hotel room and stay with them, and then I was able to sneak in to get a free, you know what I mean? Like, I was able to sneak around, and then I got like a cheap way to get, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like, and that is still privilege. Like, that was still a lot of privilege that I was able to get in the room, but that was the only reason I was even there. But it was really affirming because when I stood up and I said that, people were like, yeah, you were right. Like, people encouraged me, including people like Raquel Willis, which was like, it was just affirming, because I think sometimes it can feel like, honestly, I felt like after I said what I said, I almost felt like shame about it, because there was kind of this vulnerability, I think, and this weakness that like I put out there, and then it wasn't really met well.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like on a platform at this large you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of layers to it. So I don't want to like villainize these people. But I think just in general, like I'm just one person. There's a lot of people around the country that's having a similar experience. And there's a lot of people at the national level that might come across with that attitude or perspective unintentionally.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just really challenging. And then I think kind of I know we wanted to kind of lead into more local stuff, but I remember when we were talking about I think we were talking about getting to go to DC, and you were talking about how like it was rainbows, and like it was a really cool experience for you,
a lot of
right?
Representation.
And so I got to be in DC for World Pride for that, which there was that excitement, but then I left before the parade and the actual Trans March because I had to get back here in time for Canyon County Pride and Exotica and stuff. But the last night that I was there, the police was shutting everything down.
What?
Yeah, so I don't know if you saw this, but and it was like all over some news things, but basically the mayor and Trump and folks were trying to stop gay pride, World Pride.
What?
And so as it was, a lot of people didn't travel because they were trans, because they were like, you know what I mean? Like,
it shouldn't have been here in the first place.
There were a lot of folks, but it was kind of like planned so long ago, and then things happened. And yeah, I'm surprised that it still happened, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And so, but the interesting thing was when I was there, I think being part of the LGBTQ community and stuff, I was just like, oh, they're closing down the roads so that we can have block parties, right? Like, that's because we're going to be taking up a whole lot of space.
Right.
And that was my perception that we were having. So when I left DC, I didn't even have any perception that there was some sort of like oppression on us or something. Like, we were just doing World Pride anyway, you know what I mean? And so it made me wonder how much of, like, I started to question whether that was good information.
Yeah.
You know, was Trump trying to, did they, you know, like, and it's probably true. And I don't know. And so I think that's one of the things that's been really interesting. I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting coming back to here, even after having that experience and thinking of the idea that they're even trying to shut down DC, but then we didn't care.
Yeah.
We did what we were doing anyway.
Well, at this point, we're used to it.
Yeah.
I mean, always
that's all about being.
Pride was a riot.
It was a riot. It was a protest. It always has been. I know it's felt like we've been able to like, it not be, but you know, Pride is still a big deal here in places like here, or even smaller places in Idaho.
Absolutely.
You know, so I think depending on where you're at, it might not seem as that much of a protest or a proclamation, but
it's very like, it's different now. I think, well, this year it's different, but I think like the last 5-10 years, Pride has become like this corporate almost. I don't know. Everyone has their rainbow shit out in June, and then it's gone in July, and it's just this giant party, and everyone gets really fucked up, and there's music and dancing, and that's it. But we're starting to go back to the memory, like this was a riot, it was a protest, and it will continue to be because we have to fight still. And I think that I get frustrated with some people that are still very much just like, no, I just want to party. It's like, yeah, like you can go to Pride and have a good time and fucking party, right? But we also need you to be showing up in other ways where it really matters. Like we need you at protests, we need you at hearings, and I think that now isn't the time to just focus on like the happy fun part of it. Like, yeah, we need that because we need a really good distraction from all this bullshit that's happening, but it needs to be both.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the thing that's been interesting is now I think even these folks that have been able to kind of rest in the mainstream of being LGBTQ, now there are Pride festivals are getting impacted. Like I know there's a lot of corporate sponsors that are pulling out, or at least doing a lot less than they were doing once before, which I know has caused Pride to feel a little slighted in some ways, which they should. I also find it interesting that I think there's been like 3 pop stars that are no longer queer or no longer appear. Exactly. Now. Like Fletcher, I think Billie Eilish and JoJo.
Yeah.
They recently have like whatever. And I feel like that's kind of interesting. And that also kind of makes me feel like, I guess I can see why then people would be thinking that like being queer is a trend or something.
Yeah.
When the pop stars are now no longer queer.
Switching sides. Yeah.
Well, some of them. And some of them are just in like straight passing relationships.
Yeah. And like they're bi, so they're
and where we always were.
Yeah. So it's tricky.
And sexuality sexuality fluctuates. Like I don't ever want to I just find it interesting that there's all this stuff kind of happening at the same time.
It's just such a precarious time right now. I feel like we were talking about this earlier. Even if I'm feeling all right, like I'm having a great day, I'm feeling relaxed, like my nervous system is the opposite. Like I am ready internally to either fight or run, I feel, just because my subconscious knows that there's all this dangerous stuff happening around us in this country, and I can't truly relax because I feel like I'm just constantly keyed up.
Yeah.
And that bleeds into every aspect of life, right? Because I'll be like, well, why am I not enjoying this as much? Or why am I irritable with people? Or it's like, because I am distressed at a very deep, fundamental level. And I feel like I've been like that since November.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the burnout is starting to hit me from that. I think.
Which I think is wild too, because I also think, I know it's a lot for us to kind of like do this podcast or, do certain things. And yet I find that it helps me cope with a lot of that, that at least is directly related to like being trans in the world. Right. So I think I find it as a way of kind of empower. I don't know. It helps in some ways. I think it helps me feel like I have a little bit of control in like what's going down.
Yeah. No, I think so too. And just being able to talk about it with someone who understands, or like just with trans people in general, like I don't have to explain why I feel certain ways about certain situations, or justify my anxiety or fear, because that is still so old. When people are like, I still get people, oh my god, on my Instagram I got this girl saying well, trans people don't, like, they have the same rights as cis people. Like, I don't see what you're upset about. So I, of course, like, couldn't let that go. So I wrote this really long response listing, like, every fucking right that we were getting taken away, all these horrible things. And I was just like, how could we be this far in this and you're still that daft?
Yeah. But there's obviously, like, some disconnects, and there's obvious, like, I think one of the things that we were talking about on the national level with folks is that, and I feel this too, it's just like people are having a really hard time seeing past their own struggle to see the struggle of others. You know what I mean? So I think the challenge is a lot of those folks are struggling in their own right.
Oh yeah.
Just in different ways. Like, it might not be around their their gender, though, probably
Yeah.
women
Yeah.
probably could
Yeah, right.
say they're experiencing stuff directly around that, but they
Mhm.
might not be like equating it to that.
Yeah.
And are thinking about more economics or job or whatever sort of things that are causing them stress in their life right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's that's why, like, that's what Trump and all them want.
Yeah.
They want us to be just like so divided.
Yeah.
Because we're like stressed out, we're full of anxiety, we're full of fear, like all those sorts of things. I was listening to a podcast earlier with Tourmaline, who is an author about a recent book about Marsha P. Johnson's life, and it kind of goes through like who Marsha P. Johnson really was, kind of like the good, the bad, the ugly, so to speak, in the sense of like the human,
right?
Because you know, she's a saint and all this sort of things in a lot of ways to our community, but at the end of the day, she was, you know, she was not perfect, and she had major and mental illness. She was homeless at times. And yet she was this like beacon for so many people. And so kind of understanding the complexities of that. But one of the things that she was saying, she had mentioned that that like the thing about like these times is like when we're presented with a problem, which is what's happening right now, it's like we have a problem, we have a conflict. We have to kind of tap into that. Like we have to start to live into the solution and not focus on the like problem. So like the problem is presented, now let's fix it, or now let's work on it. And that can be a difficult thing to kind of be able to change our perspective instead of getting stuck in the what's wrong. How do we move forward to change it? Right. In whatever ways. And we have to get innovative about it. They talked a lot about like kind of like they talked about like kind of like nostalgia of like amusement parks and Disney, and kind of like getting into these immersive other worlds, right? And really to kind of begin to imagine and begin creating a new life, because a lot of us, we're not looking for things to go back to where they were. Right. We are actually working on creating a new better world for more people. And so I think sometimes it can be easy for me to lose sight of that.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, especially if it's as dire and all encompassing as this. It's like you can't, look at your phone, you can't look at a TV, you can't look at a newspaper without seeing something terrifying. And that does get exhausting. Right. But there are these great distractions like Canyon County Pride. That was a great distraction. It was a beautiful event. But there were a lot of protesters there that you had to walk through, and I
had to get there early, and so I entered to the rear, and then I left out the rear, so I never saw protesters at all, which is so wild because it seems like it was a big part. So I heard somebody talk about the protesters are kind of like another booth.
Yeah. They basically were at the front. There was a bunch of them, and they had these stupid signs that said like, "I am a sinner" or "Jesus saves sinners," and one dude had like a giant wooden cross, and they were trying to hand out water and
love bomb you.
Yeah, and then they were just trying to manipulate you into a dialogue with them, saying like, "Hey, if you are open to having like a genuine, like authentic, in good faith conversation, come talk." And we're like, no. And it was cool because earlier in the day they had a bunch of volunteers there with like these rainbow umbrellas in front of them, so like they were blocking them, which was cool. But it's like that's just part of it at this point. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So
did you heckle them at all?
I didn't actually. No, my partner did a little bit. But I'm just so burnt out with
it's like the comment section.
I did get one particularly good one though. This is where like the cognitive dissonance is just so strong. This guy was coming for me, and I was talking to him and sharing actual sources, and he's like, well, Epstein and Diddy were big LGBTQ supporters. And I was like, the Epstein that is currently at the heart of like this huge breakup basically between Trump and Musk and Diddy, who people are like concerned that Trump is going to pardon, like,
Right.
but he's trying to put that on us. So it's like, whenever I think, oh, I can argue with someone, I think about that comment. I'm like, there's no arguing with these fucking people.
Yeah.
And
there's no disconnect. I heard a lot of people, I've talked with a lot of people who had different experiences, specifically with protesters though, where I think they felt emboldened to have conversations with these protesters, and then they were kind of wounded by it. So I there was one person who was obviously having some spiritual trauma response to what was going on because they had once been on the other side. They'd been that person.
Okay. Yeah.
And so they were definitely in their feels. And so I held space for them while they were pretty messed up at Pride itself. And then I've heard from people afterwards as well. And I think that's why the thing is so people, I don't know. So I know we've gotten to the point for like you and I where it's just kind of like par for the course, but that's also why it's so, I mean, that's why they do it, because it can be hurtful, you know?
Yeah. And it's important to remember that, you know, it's best to just not. And if you don't have the capacity to, like, it's not about having the capacity to, it's like, you shouldn't have to go through that just because someone else has those opinions and they're trying to hurt you.
Yeah.
And everyone has different capacities for different things.
At different times too.
Exactly.
And that was the thing that I think, I've also talked with a lot of people since Pride who've had different feelings and where in some ways where they felt less powerful. And I told them, I was like, where like they left gay pride and then somebody said something to them and they were like hurt by it, right? And it's like, well, it makes a lot of sense because when we go to these pride festivals, we go and get to live in a world in which we get to be free and liberative, and that creates a vulnerability and an openness and an expansiveness that just makes us super vulnerable. You know, in some ways you'd think it would make us more powerful, and it does in the long run, but it does open us up. And unless we're able to like close back up again in the ways we need to, we're going to be like, we're just going to be like welcoming it in. And we're also not going to be as equipped and as, I think, ready to like cope with it. And so, you know, one of the things I was telling people, my friends with after Pride too, is just letting them know like, hey, like you're going to have probably an emotional hangover. Like you're going to probably get in your feels the next couple of days. You're probably going to experience some depression because what goes up must come down, you know? And I think sometimes we can get into those spots and it can put us in a bad way. But I think if we can just recognize that it's part of the process, because at the end of the day, we have to go back to reality.
Exactly.
And that is depressing.
It is. It's called, in performing, they call it what, glitter crash?
Oh, I've never heard that before.
And I heard that. I hear that like from the performers, right? But also when I was doing dance and there was like this competition thing, they warned us like there's this thing called glitter crash. What it is, like you're in the moment in this event or whatever, your adrenaline is up, you're having a fucking great time, and eventually it ends. And then you crash because of all of like the chemicals in your brain dumping at the same time, all of that. But like with Pride, there's an added element of the knowledge that like it could be like this. Life could be like this. Like you can just walk around just completely who you are and be safe and be recognized and seen for who you are. But then as soon as you walk back out those gates, it's back to reality. And that feels even worse after you've been in something so positive. You know?
Because you know it can be different.
Exactly.
And yet it's not, right? What I have like some questions about Canyon County Pride. I think there was no incident around like HB 270, right? So that was
there
cool.
Almost was.
There was like some concerns around like some performers and stuff. But what would you say was your highlight of?
Oh, geez.
Because we got to be on the stage
and
talk a little bit about Transjoy Boise, take some questions from the audience. But what kind of stuck out? What was your favorite thing about Canyon County Pride?
Oh, that's tough. I think I really liked being able to get on stage, and that was a lot of fun. But mostly it was just seeing all of the people that I love so much in one place. Like I got to run into so many people that mean so much to me, and I got to see them having a really good time. You know, like some people that are normally like like poor Nixon, right?
Yeah.
He's always stressed out about what's going on because he knows so much about what's going on.
Yeah.
But he was having a great fucking time.
Yeah.
And like everyone I saw was having a great time. And I thought that was really fucking cool.
Yeah.
So what about you?
Yeah. I think for me too, I was like, I was on the stage for the interfaith service and the transjoyboise moment, but like those were just like little like blips. It was like going to visit a booth or something, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so like I thought it was really cool. I maybe didn't go around to all the booths and I didn't maybe engage with everyone in the ways that I wanted, but I think the thing that was my highlight was I had glued those butterflies all over my body and stuff. And when my niece, chosen niece, Adair, showed up when we were on stage, I got to see her afterwards, and I had planned to give her butterflies. So I had glue ready, and I had butterflies because I knew she'd want them.
Yeah.
And she had this unicorn horns on and the face paint already, and I went ahead and I put a butterfly on her little finger, and then she made me wear her unicorn horns.
I saw that was
which
so
I
cute.
was just like, oh my god, no! I was like, only you can get me to put these on my head.
Did you get a picture of that?
I don't know.
There better be a picture of that.
There's probably something somewhere, but but
she's a little ham.
She is. I love her to death. She's like, it's so scary because she so loves me and so looks up to me, and it's just like, oh my god, it's scary, but it's also like it's such life. It's very life affirming too, So I mean, I would say my highlight was getting able to hang out with my niece, and I got to spend time with you and Rach, or you and your.
It's out of the bag at this point.
You and your
They're
person, and Ben and Chris, Adair's parents, and so it like I didn't necessarily go around saying there are plenty of people I didn't see, that I talked to afterwards. Like hey, I was like, but I just was kind of like I don't know. I just was kind of in my own little world, and just kind of I kept my world really small that day, and it felt good.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of did too. I went and I saw the booths, and I got to see people that way. But I mostly just hung out with like you, my partner. My partner's mom was there for a little bit.
Oh yeah,
Elliot. Got to see Eva, which was always a highlight.
It was great to see her too.
And yeah, it was good. It was really good to see Queerly Collected doing well.
Yeah.
Our friends over there.
I have to link them.
Me too. Yeah. So
we're gonna have to get them on here at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah. They're a riot.
Both of them. Yeah.
And now, because everything has balance, right? There's going to be a couple protests this week. Like there's one today that is for what's happening in California right now with ICE. And then there's one on Saturday for the 50-51 thing, the No Kings thing, which is essentially the same thing.
Right.
But,
so, well, and from what I understood, according to Rachel Maddow, which I don't know, it came across my little doom scrolling, and they were talking about there was already 1,800 rallies planned all over the country. And back when they did the take your hands off, hands off rally, there was 1,000. So they're expecting that it's going to be like even bigger, and with everything that's happening already in Los Angeles and Chicago and San Francisco and Chicago. I know I saw a mutual on San Francisco that was talking about they had a meeting with the mayor's office. A whole bunch of different community leaders were called into a meeting, and they all were told what's happening in LA is about to happen here.
Oh my God.
And so they were like really just trying to encourage people. And I think this is the mixed feelings or the mixed emotions where they talk about being nonviolent, right? But how, and I understand the being nonviolent in this sort of response, but what's nonviolent about people being like kidnapped and deported and like harassed, and like it's just like it's going to take a combination of violent and nonviolent.
Well, that violence is wearing a badge, and that's why it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, well, and there's like National Guards involved at the federal buildings, which is normal. There's a lot of talk though that there's more Marines coming in, which I know is a lot of like what you've talked about. Actually, our last episode with Asher, one of your
my lines I know.
Was martial law.
Martial law. We're getting so fucking close too, because we have within 100 miles of the border, right? We basically have that. And as these are continuing, these protests are spreading, it's gonna.
And it's federal overreach. I mean, the governor of California is like, no, we don't want this. Don't do this. Like, and that's the whole thing is they're creating this violence. They're creating this like uprising. And that's intentional.
Oh yeah. Well,
so they can justify. Exactly.
Yeah, like he wants martial law. I even heard something like absolutely ridiculous. A quote from Trump's lawyer. Someone asked if the president had a political rival, like another candidate, assassinated, would that be considered an official act and basically okay? And his attorney said, yeah. So everything that's happening right now is paving the way towards this dictatorship. And one thing that is a consequence of martial law is you can't have an election if martial law is,
which is what he wants as well, right?
Yeah. So I think that it's getting really fucking scary right now. The rest of the world is really afraid for us, and if it spreads, it's not going to take long before it ends up places like here.
Yeah. Well, and that was the thing that I remember when we were talking episodes back about like moving or not moving and things like that, and people were talking about how the blue states are going to be the more dangerous states. Like those are the states that are going to be under attack first.
Yep.
And us in the red states, we're going to kind of probably be a little bit safer
because we're the good old boys.
Well, because they think they already have us, right? They already have this area, so to speak. And so I feel like we're definitely seeing that more and more. My girlfriend Daphne was like, I saw on her TikTok that she was like in the middle of something happening in Chicago yesterday. And I know that one of the things I've been thinking though is like, because we're having a rally this afternoon in regards to ICE. And I know recently the Idaho State Police joined forces, right? Or
here. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So I'm anxious.
Yeah.
I'm a little anxious to think that maybe that could begin happening here.
Yeah.
As soon as this afternoon. And maybe into the weekend with the Kings thing. I think the Kings thing is just going to bleed into all of this and probably just bring even more people to those areas.
It's going to be massive. On top of that.
It's so wild to think. And I feel like, in some ways there's reminiscence of like when the Black Lives Matters was happening.
Yeah.
Because I remember watching things happening in Seattle on TikTok during when that was happening. And watching the live streams. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then now watching the stuff in LA and also Seattle, and like it's happening all over. It feels like that again, but also it feels like it's at a bigger level.
It's at a larger level for sure. I mean, the protests for BLM, like they got big, and there was vandalism, but not like what we're seeing in LA now, with like them throwing giant rocks over the overpass to destroy cop cars, and it's. I'm really proud of everyone that's doing what they're doing. I hope that they're staying safe.
Yeah.
But my prediction is that it's gonna spread. It's catching, because people are finally starting to see like, oh, we can fight back.
Well, and I think people are realizing that this could be that moment when, like when things shifted in Nazi Germany. Yeah. And people did nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And I think people are feeling that pressure of like, what am I going to do?
Absolutely.
What am I going to do? Am I just going to let things happen? Yeah. Or am I going to do something?
Leaning into our community even more right now.
Yeah. And I don't know if our community is there yet, but maybe it is. It's definitely something I've been thinking a lot about.
Me too. Yeah. I want to be able to make sure that we have resources for people that are feeling afraid, and because I didn't think that I wasn't doing all right, but I've been really avoidant and really just kind of isolating. And it's weird for me now because like I'm not depressed. I don't have issues with depression anymore. But when I start acting like this, it feels sort of the same with like all the things that I'm doing. And I don't realize it until conversations like this where I'm like, oh, maybe there is something going on.
Well, no, and I think what we're doing and maybe what our spirits and minds are doing for us that we may not be aware of is a lot like what Blake talked about when we had the conversation with Blake around the power of rest, and rest isn't resistance. And I think a big key is that we better be catching our rest.
Yeah.
We better be like catching our moments when we can, because it's not too far off where we might not get that same sort of choice.
That's
so I think the thing of
Thank
it
you for that, Blake.
is to really, we need to like rest in that for as long as we can.
Yeah, I agree.
And as often as we can. Yeah. So
Should probably call it.
I think we're going to call it. I know, was that 5 hours later?
Yeah. No, it's good. I think there's so much going on right now that it's good to just talk about it out loud to kind of help it make sense in my mind.
Yeah.
You
Are
know
we
what I
going to
mean?
be out and about and maybe streaming some of this stuff? Or like, I don't know, because I'm kind of feeling like if we, because I'm feeling like I almost thought today we should have somebody come on who could talk about knowing your rights with the protesting and things like that, which we'll encourage, and we'll post some things on our socials over the next couple of days to kind of help people through that in the best way we can. But because maybe, and next week maybe plan to do it. Yeah. But if we might not have until next week before it becomes important. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we could put something on our socials. I'll be at the one tonight, and on Saturday I'll be there for a little bit, but then I have to go out of town. So I'll have to leave around 1 probably.
Okay. Well, keep an eye out. And also, like, we're just one little group. There are lots of organizations and lots of streams on TikToks and Instagrams. And, you know, that's one thing right now is there's lots of good information out there to help folks kind of discern and determine how they show up. But I would say just be smart about it. Think about like some worst case scenarios and kind of how you're going to deal with situations. Do you have an exit plan? Do people know where you're at? Don't bring your children. That's my feeling.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to watch my niece this evening. And so I'm like, I just don't think I'm going to go. Yeah. Because I want to keep her safe. And I kind of feel a little bad that I'm not going to be there. And there's a part of me that doesn't want to be either. Yeah. That has a little fear. But I'm grateful for those who are going out. Anywho.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. We'll be back next week.
All right. Bye-bye.
Good luck. Perfect. Big news, Boise. We're building something incredible. A private community for transjoy Boise is set to launch next month. This is your chance to sign up and get in on the ground floor. We are creating a space for connection, support, and growth, and we are looking for members who want to be a part of something special and professionals passionate about hosting webinars, leading in-person events, moderating discussions, and sharing expertise to enrich the trans community. If this sounds like you or someone you know, don't wait. Fill out our form located in the show notes and help us add value to this vibrant space before we officially open the doors.